Folks, what's going on? HeirofCarthage here, and I am back in another Total War Warhammer 2 battle. I am glad to have you all here, and we have a fun one for you. This 2v2 is submitted by the Discord, but it has a special twist to it, which is that all 4 players involved used a random faction wheel to have their faction picked. And so what it resulted in is a Greenskin Dwarf Alliance up against Wintertooth and Norska. Yes, by random, both players ended up with Norskin factions. Let's take a look at the armies, and just real quick before we do that, when you all are done watching the video, if you enjoyed it, make sure to leave a thumbs up or thumbs down, leave a comment, subscribe if you want to see more. Anyway, as we get back into the battle, the Greenskins are led by Azag the Slaughterer. He is sporting 2 giants. Now, I think this is a pretty smart pick. It could help against infantry, plus these giants are going to be decent at standing in the way of mammoths and returning some damage to them, so I think that's a pretty interesting pick by the Greenskins, one that I may not have considered myself. Now, as for the rest of the leadership here, again, Azag for the Greenskins, there is an Orc Shaman assisting Azag, and he has the, it looks like, here we go. In order to help buff up more units. There are several Savage Orc Error Boys, I believe actually 4 in total, so a lot of range component for the Greenskins. And then as for the Dwarfs and their leadership, they have Gotrek, a Runesmith with the Wrath and Ruin for slowing, and then Ungrim Iron Fist. And then as for their infantry, it's a bunch of Longbeards, one of which has great weapons. And then there are a couple of Iron Breakers in the back, one of which is the Norgrimlings Iron Breakers. And as for the infantry, the Greenskins, it is Gobos up front, 2 of those, plus the 8 Peak Loonies on the left-hand flank. There are 2 units of Savage Orc Biggins, 1 on either flank, and then 1 here in the middle. So, sorry, that makes 3 units in total. My bad on that one. So, there's also 2 units of Trollhammer Torpedoes for the Dwarves, so considerable potential for dropping large single-entity targets here. You have Spirit Leech with Azag, Trollhammer Torpedoes, Archers, all kinds of stuff for bringing down large targets, and that makes a lot of sense considering you're up against 2 Norskin factions. And looking at the Norskin armies, yes, they brought the right stuff. There are 2 Feral Manticores flying around for Wintertooth, which is led by a Marauder Chieftain, and a Shaman Sorcerer Lore of Metal, both of which are in a chariot. There is another Shaman Sorcerer Lore of Metal on a horse here, and he is supporting Wulfric, who is also on his horse. And then from a mammoth standpoint, we have a war mammoth, a soul crusher, and a mammoth with a war shrine. Here's the war shrine, and here is soul crusher. As far as other large units, there are 2 units of Miststalkers, 1 for each player, and then the Famir warriors, and then really the infantry is just a whole bunch of marauders, 1 with a spear, and you do have the Brutes of the Hound and the Icehorn marauders present as well as some marauder hunters, and then there was a couple of Norskin warhounds deployed way back in the back. Let's get into the action and see whether the Greenskins can hold back the tide of single entity monsters that Norska is throwing against them. I mean, that is 4 leaders, 3 Famir warriors, and 3 mammoths, and 2 manticores that have to be dealt with by the opposite team. Now, they certainly have the capability. Azag starts things off with a Spirit Leech on Wulfric, which I think is a great pick. He is certainly the most powerful lord here. Not necessarily the single most powerful unit, but he's going to play a big role in the battle, and taking him out early wouldn't hurt. Now, Azag doesn't have to worry much. His Wyvern, especially with Foe Seeker, will get up to about 130 speed, so he can easily stay in front of the Feral Manticores. They won't be able to keep up. Azag is a slippery little devil to catch. Now, immediately, the 2 Manticores go for the Trollhammer Torpedoes. This is a necessary move. Otherwise, the Mammoths can't even move forward. They will take too much damage. So, Norska is going to have to attempt to cause some trouble. And you can see here the ship coming in from Wulfric, actually pretty good here, doing some damage to 2 different Savage Orc Error Boy units. And initial engagements for infantry have obviously gone poorly for Norska, as their infantry was fairly cheap to begin with. And just look at the Savage Orc Error Boys pouring it on, despite the Trollhammer Torpedoes being temporarily incapacitated. You can see some massive archer fire coming in, and the nice spread of the Savage Orc Error Boys allow for that fire to continue, despite the fact that there's heavy pressure across multiple positions of the battlefield by Norska. You can see the Mammoths have all come forward now, one of which has already routed. The War Mammoth has already had it. One of the Iron Drakes was able to get away from a berserking Feral Manticore, and the other one was driven off by the Dwarf leadership. And so you can see how quickly one of the mammoths is able to be dealt with as long as those units are able to fire. Don't underestimate Trollhammer torpedoes even for a second. A single volley can be absolutely devastating if it hits the right target. And you can see here these Famir warriors are now going to be the recipient of said love from the greenskins and the dwarves, the very strange alliance. Fortunately for the Miststalkers, they are resisting it fairly well, all things considered, and they managed to get in and tie down the Iron Drakes. And you've got another Miststalker over here, it looks like, attempting to do the same. So a nice Searing Doom here, doing a lot of damage to the Savage Orc Error Boys. And then over here, a Warhound getting into them. So I believe Norska is doing just about all they can to try and tie this stuff down and get rid of it. Here comes a Spirit Leech from Azag, this time on the Warhounds, trying to get rid of him. It'll kill a few units of the Warhounds, so it's not completely wasted. It depends on what you want the Spirit Leech to do. I mean, Spirit Leeching a Mammoth isn't going to do a ton in the end either, but I was surprised to not necessarily see it go down on the Shaman Sorcerer or the Marauder Chieftain over here. But those Warhounds were a big problem at the moment, so I can see why the Greenskins may want to deal with them. Look how well the Giant is doing over here. I'm going to just kind of swing this way in the battle. The Giant is really holding back Soul Crusher very nicely because he has infantry support, but look at Soul Crusher, already over 100 kills despite everything going on here, just to give you an idea of how strong that Mammoth is. So despite having all three of those things against him, still managed to pick up 110 kills. Over here, the Miststalkers are now bogged down in a whole bunch of Longbeards. Not a fight that they really want to be involved in at the moment. There's probably help needed elsewhere. You can see what happens when Gotrek and Ungrim get together. This is some serious slaying going on as this Mammoth takes a face full of blasting charges from some Iron Breakers in an epic beatdown of the Mammoth there. We still got a Marauder Chieftain and the Shaman Sorcerer running around, and Wolfric is actually still alive over here too. You can see some Error Boys trying to get to him. Things not looking good for Norska. Their main killing tools have been mostly dealt with, and the Greenskins are now able to pull in their remaining infantry and giants to help really turn down the heat on everything else. So really interesting combination of Greenskins and Dwarfs here to be extremely effective against large targets while maintaining an infantry advantage. I'd really say the Greenskins, no surprise that Greenskins can provide Norska with a lot of infantry trouble, right? That's not really a big surprise. Greenskins have better infantry on every front than Norska, at least in my opinion. The only place where Norska might have a small advantage is if it was just a battle of unarmored infantry. Berserkers would be pretty good against boys, gobos, that kind of stuff. Maybe even Savage Orcs. I'm still not certain though. I mean, I think Greenskins can do just about anything Norska can do with infantry and better. But yeah, so anyway, that piece was already going to be in the hands of the dwarves. But it's really the large targets, and that was a lot of large targets to deal with. So I really think the Savage Orc Error Boy build, along with the Giants from the Greenskins, was clutch in helping to make sure that this fight could continue in such a way that they could continue to do damage to the large targets. Plus, you put the Runesmith, Ungrim, and Gotrek in there, and really Norska's just got too many things to worry about. It becomes far too difficult to keep your mammoths safe in any one given situation. Because you're losing the infantry fight, you need your mammoths to come in. But then, what are you going to do about the giants? While also trying to tie down 4 archers and 2 Trollhammer torpedoes and avoid Gotrek and Ungrim. It gets to be very difficult. So I like the way that this team was able to counterbalance against 2 Norskas, which obviously have the capability to steamroll if they can get those mammoths and the terror rolling. And the Greenskins are particularly vulnerable to that type of thing. And so I really thought this was an interesting way for the Greenskins to team up with the Dwarves, who provide a higher leadership backbone, but then use some support units to nicely support the Dwarves there, because the Dwarves are also pretty good from an anti-large standpoint. So it was a pretty cool combination. I actually enjoyed that. I forgot I didn't have the music on today. I'd turned it off the other day whenever I was going through some, so apologize. There's no music on there today. I will get that turned back on. But yeah, thanks to Dutch Skink, and this was actually Wicked here, and then we have King of the Dead and Bound Cataclysm here playing the Norskin teams. This is fun. I may have to try some of this myself. Like maybe we should do some 4v4 like tabletop rules with random faction selection. I think that's something that I want to try here coming up soon. So I'm probably going to go give that a shot. But let's take a look at each one of them. Dutch Skink, the Iron Drakes, this one actually picked up a Chevron, so did some nice damage probably versus Mammoths and other targets. The Iron Breakers didn't end up having to do a lot, but they would have been a tough target for Norsca to bring down late, especially if they had taken a lot of damage along the way. Not to say that Norsca didn't have units that could. They had Mammoths, they had Fmir Warriors, they certainly had units that could, but they were also having to deal with everything else. The pick of Ungram and Gotrek here, I think, is utterly safe against Norsca. I mean, the only real risk you run is maybe getting picked apart by javelins or chariots late in it with those two, but it feels worth it when you have the support of a greenskin ally in this case. And with Wicked, I think the pick of the archers here, along with the giants, became a very interesting one and a very effective one. So a cool pick that I wouldn't have necessarily expected. And then King of the Dead with his Norsca pick, I mean, I probably would have been going down a similar route. The chariot picks here makes a lot of sense. Greenskins and dwarves both could have a lot of infantry on the field that a chariot would be good against, as well as like lords on foot potentially. And then same thing with the mammoths. I feel like you probably have to bring the mammoth here in order to try and do that damage. It's a tough combination they're up against, and since both players had Norsca, they didn't have some of the same flexibility that they would have gotten like the other team, where they can combine the strengths of two factions and play those. And that's the challenge of this faction wheel, right? It gave them both Norsca, so they didn't have an opportunity to have, like I said, two factions synergizing and filling in each other's weaknesses, kind of like the Greenskins and the Dwarves were able to do here. So it's an interesting play. If you all want to see more of these, let me know. Would love to hear your comments. I want to do some more of them in terms of, I think it'd be fun to ramp it up to a 4v4. And like I said, also implement some of the tabletop rules, which basically comes in and limits like the type of, like the numbers of different types of units you can bring, to where it makes it more like the tabletop play, which could create some interesting scenarios that differ from maybe the normal either cheese or meta type picks that you would see from these factions. So it may cause some different changes and help lead to some more fun battles. So I'll be looking into that one. Anyway, HeirofCarthage signing out for now. I will see you all soon with some more Total War Warhammer 2 action.